Hello everybody, it's Mike Levin from MikeLevinSEO.com, and I'm out walking Cecil, and I got to stop calling these my morning walks because sometimes they are at night. And I have finished my first week at Flying Point Digital, and it's quite an exercise readjusting my self-image from being one of these 360i people to a much smaller marketing firm, Flying Point Digital. But I've got to be honest with myself, I am a small marketing firm company kind of person. The particular brand of SEO Kung Fu that I exercise, which is making tools to alleviate the most common pain points, is highly appreciated at a small firm where people face those pain points every day. At 360i, I don't know, it just, it was there at the beginning and wasn't there in the later days. I'm not sure exactly what it is. Maybe the departments were just physically too distant from where I was on different floors of the building. And the people who were like, oh, this is amazing work, I did not see and interact with and work with every day. And the feedback loop of, wouldn't it be great if your tools could do this? Oh, I can make my tools do that. Stopped happening. I was with 360i for about 6 years, and I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 years into the process is when that wonderful magic was not quite at the levels that it was prior. Now, I can't say that across the board because there were the occasional champions who were like, oh, you can't make Tiger public, please implement this feature, please implement that feature. And that was a pretty good feeling, I got to admit. But when you get that big, you've got a lot of options. You can deal with any of the big software vendors you'd like. You can get them to implement the features you need, or at least you can be in the partnership relationships where you feel like you're going to get those features, and you don't need the scrappy, nimble developer who's able to just pivot this way and that to satisfy instant needs. That just doesn't feel as valuable. But when you're a small company and you're working hard to just be at that, shall we call it SEO 101 level, and it's across the board. It's in social, it's in, pay-per-click. Everything has a bare minimum level you're trying to satisfy, and then there's delighting the clients. And delighting the clients is really where things get interesting, because anyone can use a bid management platform. Anyone can sign up for, one of the basic social tracking platforms. But the idea is to go one step beyond, to do things that other people cannot do. And, that in the build versus buy equation, that is the build part of it. But building has lots of dangers because you can't support things indefinitely, and things only work so long. So the idea is to build, get maximum value out of it, and understand that it's disposable work. And it's the 80-20 rule. I mean, I actually started, working at Flying Point and said, of course, we'll employ the 80-20 rule. And one of my coworkers said, what is that? And most people know the 80-20 rule, I guess, from things like taxes, with if you use a home office 80% of the time for business, you can write it off. But in life, the 80-20 rule means you get 80% of the benefit of any work you do from the first 20% of the effort you put into it. So once you're 1/5 of the way in, you can actually stop, and you still have gotten most of the benefit of the effort. And then later on, you're going to do a similar effort, and you stop 20% of the way in, get 80% of the benefit, and of course, lather, rinse, and repeat. And over time, you move progressively more towards where you need to be, even though you never finish anything. But that's okay, because you're employing the 80-20 rule. There you go. So that's kind of the mentality and the methodology that I'm going to try and bring to Flying Point, right down to tools that I develop. Because I employ the 80-20 rule in developing tools. I'm certainly not going to build things that have commercial potential, because that means support, that means, you know, staying on top of things, that means keeping them from breaking forever. But instead, my approach is to make something that yields lots of benefit, that you can really use intensely for the first, 6 months the tool exists, and then when it stops working, so what? A new tool exists, you move on to the next benefit. The dog and pony show starts all over again with a new dog and a new pony. And yeah, so that's pretty much it. Another interesting aspect that came up recently is how much you really can do it in Excel. I'm an anti-Microsoft Office person. I don't like PowerPoint, I don't like Excel, I don't like Word. But fact is, they got a lot of capabilities in there, and it's installed on all our machines, and there's no reason to walk away from capabilities sitting there waiting to be used. And so what I'm doing is delving into those areas that every day you could use a Vlookup or a pivot table. These are the two things that separate the kids from the adults with Excel usage. You can use Excel for years, but if you don't know how to use a pivot table to roll up log file like data into graphable values, then you're not getting the most out of Excel. It's just as simple as that. Similarly, with Vlookup, if you don't know how to have two disjointed tables that can be joined on a common value, you're not getting the most out of Excel. You're doing tons of tedious, busy work that you don't need to be doing if you can just be a little bit more sophisticated. And these are actually principles in life. I guess the first thing that jumps to mind is Seth Godin's The Dip. It's one of his tiny little books. Seth Godin summarizes these fundamental concepts of life very well. I guess I'm becoming less of a fan of his because, he commercializes these tiny little insights with a book surrounding the insight. And I don't know, it feels a little bit shallow or opportunistic, but he does hit the right point. And the right point is that if you take a little bit more time and put in a little bit more work, you get a lot more return. Because most people give up when things get the slightest bit difficult. And so, if you forge through and put in the difficult study, thought work, understanding, utilization of tools at your disposal to get that one next level, just that tiny little bit more than other people are getting out of things, then you are actually much further ahead of them than the amount of work would suggest. And anyone who uses pivot tables or VLOOKUPs knows exactly what I'm talking about, because they can practice a certain sort of kung fu in Excel that other people can't. End result, they spend less time in Excel to produce more actionable and prettier graphs and data than other people who spend more time in Excel for lesser results. And that permeates all of tech. All of tech has this point where as soon as you get off the beaten track, as soon as you have to do something slightly custom, particularly requiring a little bit of coding, then forget it. People tune out, and the YouTube attention spans, the attention deficit disorder the ADHD all kicks in, and they don't become anything greater than what they could be. Although the reward is just on the other side of a very thin fence. And getting over that thin fence either requires some aggressive Googling, knowing that something should be possible, and just going at it with a certain sort of determination, or alternatively having a mentor who sees what you're trying to do and says, hey, there's a better way to do this. And for those of you lucky enough to have a mentor, embrace it. See what they're trying to teach you, listen to them for a bit, because it's a lot easier with a mentor than forging your own route through that path. But for those who don't have a mentor, it's worth it. Just stick to it. Know that if you think something should be possible in an easier way, it probably is possible in an easier way. That feature has been built. It just hasn't been turned into a brain-dead simple wizard yet, and requires a little bit of Googling and a little bit of stick-to-itiveness in order to make it work. But once you get it to work, totally worth it. Well, anyway, it's coming on the 12-minute video. It doesn't feel like it at all. I love rambling. I wonder how the people at my new job are going to respond to my propensity to ramble. I'm going to have to keep that under control. Thanks for joining me. Don't forget to subscribe, and I talk to you soon.